G'day guys, here to have a look at the first meeting for 2022. I don't know what year it is. Saturday at the Kensington track, the lovely Kensington track. Can be a little bit difficult to decipher the Kensington track and work out how it's going to play. They don't race there all that often. Saturdays very rarely, but setting up with a pretty fair track in mind. Do have the map up here, so northeasterly, so something like this direction. So the opposite to last week where they were running into the wind and that back straight. They're downwind, horses coming out of the chutes. Not so much the 1400, but once they get turning, they're getting hit in the side, hit in the face up the straight. So could prove that you may want a little bit of cover ideally, and then sort of expose late, depending on how strong that wind gets, but there's sort of 20 to 30 k an hour winds predicted. So keeping an eye on the pattern certainly always important at the Kensington. Can go off during the day too and become more down the middle as the day goes on. So just got to be a little bit careful setting the meeting up. Setting up for a fair track though, because it should be the fine conditions the next few days. I think that's sort of got a 5 or 6. So I'd expect it to get back to a 4 or 5 without much issue. So that's the idea. High pressure race is probably, leaning towards a horse coming down the middle a little bit more than the smaller fields that we find during the day. Race 1 for the 2-year-olds over 11.50. Really competitive race this. Thought there were a number of runners that had pretty good form. That horse, Deeply, California Deeply, was
in the Snowden yard. Kira McAvoy.
Let me turn that right down. What's going on here? Oh, this was its trial, pardon me. It's first starting a race after it trialled up in a small field, so it was hard to get a real gauge on it there.
Half a dozen to run. The starter says go and they're off. The favourite Shalab was one of the first.
Showed a bit of speed, which is important. Took the box seat and looked to be sort of held up probably too long in a race where all these horses were hitting their top. Was able to get out late. Still didn't really want to take this gap. And strong through the line. That last 200 metres. Really strong through the line. That last 200 metres, the last 400 was good too, even though it was a slowish tempo. Sorry, getting messages at the same time. Certainly can go on. The stable obviously going really well now. And draws nicely, so expect that horse to go forward. Fireburn, which is the horse that ran in that race, ran 4th in that race, came out 1 since. Draws a little bit wide, but that may be okay in this race. There looks good pressure. What do we got else? Def Leopard, I'm just going down the page a bit here. Wink is on. 2 trials were okay, showing speed. This is not an easy race for a horse, so it's drawn 16, first start in the race. Probably want to let it go. The horse that I found off its last run, its debut, and had trialled really nicely before, was Glint of Silver. I think around $21 around for this horse currently. Glint of Silver draws really nicely, expected to improve out of sight off that first run, which was good, just drew the wrong spot there. And certain player here, London just looked the ultimate professional, 1 trial only, but ran really, just trucked in behind, pulled out, accelerated really nicely when asked for any sort of go, which it was, and then basically shut down, just looked a real professional. This horse is really interesting, Secret Revolution. It basically stopped after leading its first trial. See that they've what have they done here? Put lugging bit and tongue tie on, and sent it back to the trials, and it trialled like a rocket. We'll show that. Lugging bit and tongue tie sort of suggests that maybe it just choked down completely, swallowed its tongue, or got its tongue over the bit. Something like that, which is not unusual, and certainly not unusual with 2-year-olds. So expect this horse, he jumps here, dragged back, so probably an intent to take a sit here, I would imagine, on Saturday. And traditionally it's not easy to come wide and run on it wild, so leader fence is the place to be. You'll see how quickly that horse just goes bang and blows their heads off. You don't trial much more impressively than that. Obviously only a 2-year-old trial, but you don't trial much more impressively than that. Even with the run under your belt and taking that into account, you should probably trial better after you've had a race start and a race run. It's right in the race. Who else have we got? We've got 1 trial Vanderzen. Not really. I think Wild Irish Rover was not in the right spot. Wild Irish Rover wasn't in the right spot and can improve, but Gate 17 does it no favours. Pantenario drawn the inside, certainly got enough speed to lead. 2 trials since this time in. So I like these 2-year-olds that have had a prep, which this horse had led behind the good horse, what's it called, Coolangatta, and beaten 3.6 by Coolangatta, which probably looks like really good form, and this horse certainly looks like it's improved, if anything, since then. And Sabilla, first starter for Chris Waller, also trialled really nicely, and I thought it was one of the 4 main hopes in the race. Really loved the trial of Secret Revolution. California Deeply, there's actually more than 4 hopes. I'd have Secret Revolution on top, pardon me. Pantenario, just that inside draw and the pressure that it probably receives is going to make it vulnerable late, but I expect it to run well, and if the fence is good, it'll run really well. California Deeply runs well. Glint of Silver runs really well. Sibilla runs really well. I think on debut, and London runs really well. Looking at the current prices, I'd say sort of the value runner is certainly Glint of Silver. I think 2 to 1's well and truly short enough. I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's been heavily backed, Secret Revolution, because I do not remember seeing it that sort of price. And the others are all pretty well found. $7.50 California Deeply, $5 London, $11 Sevilla. There's no huge value there, but I could certainly spec Glint of Silver at around the 20 to 1 mark off a really good first start, and it'll appreciate pressure in the race here with getting a softer run with a bit of cover. Race 2, the Highway, another absolute nightmare to try and decipher. The map's very difficult. Looks like there's really good pressure. Where do these horses get that are drawn wide? Do they push on? Expecting a fast run 1400. Going down from the top, Activation has not been jumping. Went back to the trials and trialled really well after just sort of not even been able to tack on there. It's got a bunch of gear changes, winkers, barrier blankets, blinkers off, tongue tie off. I don't know how to trust that horse, but wouldn't surprise me, but no confidence whatsoever. I thought King's Trust was extremely short here at 480. Had its Christmas last start, ran 1400 and an inch. I don't think that a faster run 1400 here with more pressure, wide draw, unless it gets an absolutely perfect ride again, suits it. It's impossible that Banju can be longer in the market than King's Trust for me. It draws better here, still awkwardly, and certainly has more upside over 1400 and beyond than King's Trust does for me. Demanding Mo with every possible chance in easier last start and fell in. Has some pace, but looks tested this level, I thought. Morgenstern, very interesting run first start. Looks like a horse that could appreciate high pressure. I'm not going to say it can't win, that's for sure. Still in Fashion gets the blinkers. Pretty one-paced horse that I thought if it was going to win a race like this would have put that race away last start. Understand the blinkers go on, but I think they're more of a throw at the stumps than they are a planned play. What have we got here? Career best form for Pay the Dealer. Had a lot of starts, but does, and it's 15th up in its prep, but it seems to be going well. I saw it was also nominated for Melbourne. If it runs here, I can't knock it at the price it is. I think it's around $13, $14. Not going to knock it at that price. This horse Majority is going extremely well. Up on a really slow tempo last start, and even though it fought back to win, it probably looked worse than it was. It was a better win than what it seemed to the eye, I would imagine. And this horse is going really well. Where does it get to from the gate? I'm not sure. But it will appreciate a fast tempo, I would imagine, as long as it gets a bit of cover in the run. Diarissima was just breathtaking visually there at Wyong the other day. It certainly was a good place to be down the outside there, but it still ran time. And you've got to say, like, this horse's foal bandages come off. It's got a terrible strike rate, the horse, but it has been put in some weird races over its lifetime. And if it produces what it did last start, very scary here. The rest are pretty much steady, I think. Need help from others, probably. Surf Sonic may be the one that needs that can measure up, but I thought others were probably more scary. Pretty tough race. I thought the three main players were Banju, Majority and Diarissima. A lot like 11, 14 and 10 gate. Whoever gets the best run of those three, I think, will be going very close. Very scared of Morgenstern. And I think they're the main players, just the way the race is going to be run. So I think they're the four main players, and they're all well enough found, I think, sort of $6.50 to $8.50 mark, and Morgan's to $12. Not huge value, and nothing stands out in the highway for me. Race 3 is an interesting one, 2,500 metre race, but the horses that come out of this Lady Loves to Gamble race, it went out sort of 20 lengths below standard to the 600 metre mark, same to the 800 their last start. So they basically handed this horse the race. It's run home 10.9 above average, so 2 seconds faster basically than they'd normally run a 2,400 metre home at Warwick Farm, for that class and distance. Basically an impossible task for those well back in the field, but also made the race shape more like a 1,800 metre, 2,000 metre race here, which is what helped Lady Loves to Gamble to run the strong 2,400. I don't know if they'll adopt the same tactics or try to here. I would if I was them. And if she controls again, maybe she can run a race. But I'd be saying that there's a good chance that possibly Born a King from the Wallace stable or Herman Hess pushes forward and pushes the tempo early. I think it'd be in favour of Born a King to do that. I would be pushing for that if I was anything to do with Connections. It seems to have just been out sprinted a bit lately, and I thought he was a good opportunity to test its staying potential. Herman Hess probably went too fast in front last start, so I'm not sure if they'll be wary of that or whether they'll push forward again. Lady Loves to Gamble and Black Queen, I reckon, take a sit today, and Terwilliger just sort of pops in on the inside. So I'm not expecting a breakneck speed, but I assume they'll roll along. Black Queen certainly gets the right run again, and Herman Hess also gets the right run, I would imagine, sort of just rolls forward there, and they look the hardest two to beat over the 2,400 metres, as long as it's a solidly run race. Born a King is a definite possible improver. Coming out of different form lines to these horses, and I'm getting up to 2,400 as well. It's just a very interesting horse, and look out for change of tactics on it. I see there's a few changes in bits too, so they're experimenting with a few things with this horse here. Can improve. Combella Fee was short price favourite against Black Queen and Lady Loves to Gamble last start. Synthetic Filler went on there, and I didn't think it went great anyway, but certainly no surprise to see it improve, but it could be at the back. I thought that Lady Loves to Gamble was the risk, and possibly Oceanic Flash as well. He went quite well last start, but I think it's another horse that possibly tested at 2,400 at the moment, but at least it has that run under its belt. I think Herman Hess and Black Queen are the main two players here, and the market has found them. $5 is okay for Black Queen, $3.90 okay for Herman Hess, $4.80 okay for Born a King, and it scares me, and it's the reason why I won't be betting in the race. Race 4. What are my notes here? Race 4, I've got a really tricky race with plenty of camera shy horses and others that have found their level and struggling to win again. You've got Boudoir, who just always seems to find one better finding the front here, and then secretively is in a couple of races. Prince Invincible, they've got the crossover noseband. They won't be looking to smash it like they did last start out in front, I wouldn't imagine, and put too much on. And then you've got horses like Assam Mohenshel, Invincible Kiss drawn wide. I think Invincible Kiss is scratched, actually. But there's other horses drawn wide here looking to hold spots, others inside that looking to hold spots. I would imagine there'll be a 3 and 4 wide line here, which is interesting, but who's the horse you want to be on? I think horses like Henschel, I think Prince Invincible can improve. He's super lucky, has the concussion plates coming off, which is interesting. Pulled a shoe last start, so certainly forgivable effort there, and can improve. Nicoli Beagle, trialled up well enough, 122 days off. Key Largo's run well at both runs back. I think it's had 2 runs back, isn't it? I'm not going mad yet. 2 runs back with not a lot of luck. It's run well, and another horse that could probably sit and sprint off the back of a 3 wide line. Free State's not absolutely hopeless. I think it's 2-1 paced. I couldn't finally realise from the inside draw. I thought they've thrown the kitchen sink at it. Its trials and only fair trials for mine. And the horse down the bottom, Secretively's run well on a couple of wet tracks and looks to be going well, but does it find that here, and will it even run? And I see there's 2 scratching, so it does have a run. Invincible Kiss is out and Damage is out. So really tough race for mine. I marked at $8.50 the field, and the favourite Prince Invincible, Synthetic Hoofiller going on it, is a worry too. So obviously not a race that I'm super excited about. I really couldn't find anything that stood out or anything that looked super value. Just going across my prices against what's available. Nothing really. Henschel minorly, and that's about it. Like, it's a tough race to decipher, and a tough race to find any value in as well. So I don't think it's really even spending more time on at this stage. Race 5, much more predictable race. A few little question marks. Horse like Moonshine Ladies, first up for a new stable, did trial like they want it to be ridden aggressively out of the gates. I see it's got a blindfold and tongue tie again, so that's interesting. Obviously a horse that doesn't really like going into the gates. They're always interesting. And who else have we got on speed? Laprisi, who was just given the most incredible ride you've ever seen last start, has done most of its racing on speed and came off a complete forgive there. A very weird sort of switch to come from that meeting to this, but its form is strong and obviously going really well. Betting said that it was going to run extremely well there at Hawkesbury, and considering everything that went wrong, it did run well. I think soft track may help it. And forgive us, I'm looking at the wrong horse. Force and Ease, the horse with the wet soft track. Forgive last start can improve significantly. I thought at $16, it was the value runner here in what was a race just full of queries. Irish Angel looks like it's going to get back, going down from the top again. Irish Angel looks like it's going to get back, has a really good turn of foot, but can it sort of get itself into the race to use the turn of foot? I'm not so sure. Selena Dreaming resumes 231 days with bandages on, 2 really quiet trials. Dry's obviously good for it, and draws that outside gate there. And do they push? Do they not? I would imagine they nearly have to. If they don't, maybe, it's not ready. Misdeed, having its first full prep for the Kimore stable, trialled up quite well. Prefers the wet, I thought, and draws interestingly. Could lob third the fence, which would bring it into the race, but tough to work that one out. The major query runner is obviously this horse, Celestine, first up for 308 days, no public trials, which is pretty normal for Matthew Dale. Nose roll comes off. You see its form as a 2-year-old was good. Won as a 2-year-old, then came back and won as a 3-year-old and won again. 3-year-old filly at Flemington, over 1,000 down the straight. Ended up in a Group 3 where it was beaten 0.81 of a length by horses like Written Beauty and Marbusha. They'd start pretty short here. Obviously only $5.50 off the break with the big query, but nobody knows except for the stable and those who have seen it go around, whether it's in jump outs or what have you. Watch the betting very closely here. Usually pretty spot on with the Matthew Dale stable, the betting, especially late. It's the key to the race. If it runs up to those runs early in its career, the race is probably over. But obviously 308 days, obviously something's gone wrong. And whether she's back on track now, not many people will know. Fritz's Fractal was a complete forgive first up, but in the Irish Angel boat, turn of foot horse that's probably going to be out the back. Forsenini's obviously come back well. A lot of obviously is 2 wins in a row, really solid wins too. Sprinted through there the other day. That form really hasn't held up, that Kibosh form. So that's a query here, going up in grade, but has the race fitness, and that gives her a pretty strong platform to run well here. I thought Irish Angel will get out, and I think it's the sort of one that could camp up 3 wide, get to the outside and out sprint them. I'm not that interested at $5. If it gets out, I'm probably more interested in the Laprisi at $16 was the other one that could improve significantly and just looked a bit of value over the rest a tricky race, and it sort of all circles around Celestine for mine mainly, and Selena Dreaming, who are both hard in the market and huge query runners here. Race 6. This one seems more predictable. So we got Big Boy Roy drawing the middle of the track. Who goes forward to the others? Kerwin's Lane will kick up and hold a spot. Counting Monte Cristo, I'm not sure if it's capable. Kerwin's Lane could easily cross it and end up behind the leader, maybe up to 15.50 with a couple of runs. Counting Monte Cristo can be more positive. I expect Batiga to be far more positive than it was. They were on it first up, sort of dragged out the race, got keen, ran a really fast last 800 there, and got tired quite late. So it's run, nowhere near as fast last 200 comparatively, but 8 to the 2 it was the best of the day, and it didn't really look like that. So I think there was some hidden merit in its run. Can settle much closer here. The jockey just kills me, but it's that time of year. There's so many away, so many with COVID and other things. He has ridden this horse to run 4th or 5th in a Group 1 on it before, and I expect this horse to improve significantly. I don't expect it to be a really hard run 15.50. So I think it'll settle in the first 4, and it has a turn of foot. The other horse with the turn of foot is Kerwin's Lane, who has a perfect setup. Again, just draws that gate, whether it drops to the rails and needs a little bit of luck or not. Can get itself out of trouble with its sustained turn of foot, but as you sort of said, it's not a push button horse. It just takes a little bit of time to wind up, build through its gears. So I think it and Batiga have got the trump cards here in their turn of speed. If Batiga had one more run, it would be an even better setup, but certainly runs extremely well here, and the jockey does scare me. But they're all pretty one-paced horses around it. Purple Sector's second up off a really good run first up. That second up 14 days up to 15.50 is a real query for me, just because of the how hard a run it had comparatively to Batiga, who sort of sat back, dragged out of the race back last, and made a good run. Like they're sort of saying, this horse has ran the 9th fastest 800 of the day, 18th fastest 8 to the 2. Obviously hit the line a little bit better than Batiga, but it knocked up. This horse now has to go back in the race. I think it'll be back last, overcome a few more things, give 6 kilos to Batiga, half kilo worse off, and Batiga will settle closer this time, can run a similar sections, and this horse has then got to try and run it down. So that's my thinking there anyway, that I can't back Purple Sector to beat Batiga. Big Boy Roy, pretty one-paced. Dream Circle, pretty one-paced. Even if they get it, I think if there'd have to be bad luck for Kerwins and Batiga for something else to win the race. Let's just put it that way. Lord Belvedere's an interesting horse, first up for 203 days. Mile first up, hasn't really run short of sort of 2,000 metres for a long time. Did win first up over this sort of trip a long time ago at Cranbourne, I think. So its trials were fine, and it could surprise, but not an easy task, that's for sure. What prices are they? Sorry, just before we go. 350 Kerwin's Lane, 480 Batiga. I'd say I'd give the edge to Batiga just because I've got it marked a little bit shorter than its price, 375 as opposed to 480. Kerwin's Lane, 325 to 350. Not much in it, but I think they're the two hardest to beat in race 6. Race 7, I did read an article here which has helped me make up my mind how this race is going to be run. De Groen's just a horse that's the key to the race. It does look like there's some chance that it'll get a really soft time of it up front, and that makes it a bit of a nightmare of a race. But I think if it's any sort of evenly run race, that Dragonstone will get over the top of them. Secretively's in a couple of races. I think it was an emergency in that other race, so I haven't checked to see whether it's scratched. I should. Ocean Emperor does look the most likely to sort of roll forward, or Invincible Kiss to kick up and hold a position. Leo should take the sit, and then Dragonstone only needs cover to win for mine. 280, no luxury for a horse that needs a little bit of luck, but I do think this horse has got a bit on them. De Groen did trial quite nicely with the blinkers off. I'm scared that it was scratched twice 2 weeks ago. It did have wide draws in both of those. It's been a month since the trial, and I think unless it gets a really soft time of it in front, it's going to be vulnerable. Van Giz ran nicely first up. I expect it to sort of be ridden back quiet again, and I don't think it can get past Dragonstone over 1,000 metres. I think the only betting proposition in the race is Dragonstone, because I can't take 3.30 about De Groen, I can't take 6.50 about Leo sitting behind it, I can't take $7 about Van Gies, who's going to be back last, and there's nothing up in front that's got the turn of foot to hold off Dragonstone if it has any luck at all, and it probably doesn't need it over 1,000. So I think it could sit 3 wide and beat these, to be honest. So Dragonstone clearly in race 7 and 1 for the multiplayers. Don't know whether it gets out or shortens, to be fair. Hard one. Race 8, this one looks pretty straightforward too, which always scares me. Too Much to Bear was just enormous first up. Ran fastest last 8.642 of the day there, over 1,400. 14 days since then. It wasn't a taxing run, like it was just dropped out and came down the middle and sort of allowed to run on and hit the line and ran through the line. So I can't really see it struggling to back that up, is kind of where I'm heading with this. It was dragged out of the race there. Draws through, this is it here, Too Much to Bear. Dragged out of the race. Draws a nicer gate, so it should be settling in a better position up in distance here. As you see, so there's no real pressure put on this horse, so it's just allowed to get to the outside and wind up. It's not as if it's had to face any sort of breeze or do any work, and it's only sprinted up that last, 6, or sprinted up nicely the last 800, and importantly going through its gears and powering through the line, not stopping. So I expect this horse to run extremely well. I would be surprised if it starts 310, if it does start north of that. This Wallace stable just drives me mad with betting. Every time I think they're going to come in, they get out, and the opposite. So it just looks too good to be true, nearly Too Much to Bear here. You've got Canasta and Four Valor, who at worst will soften each other up a little bit. I'm not a big Four Valor fan. I think this is sort of when it'll meet its class wall. Canasta's going well enough. Went too quick the other day. They'd really have to control the race, these two, to make it a tough for Too Much to Bear to get past them, which I expect to be sort of 4th, 5th in the run, with outside Carlisle Bay, most likely with Speed Legend holding that spot. So I think there's a big chance these two lead. Too Much to Bear pops straight in behind them, and it's a matter of whether Carlisle Bay goes to the fence and Speed Legend then holds that position. Speed Legend really good last start, chasing that fast tempo, obviously racing well off that long break that it's had. But I don't see it having the turn of foot to scare it Too Much to Bear, and pretty much no matter what happens, this horse Too Much to Bear should get a nice run. If it's a little bit further back, it's because they're going quick, and I just don't really know how they beat it unless it flops off a first up performance that was, as I said, just pretty much it was better than them over a trip that should have been vulnerable at. So I think this is nearly an easier race apart from Canasta, and I expect it to win the race. Too Much to Bear in race 8. Race 9. We go back to a trick fest. We've got, looks like Snit's on Fire will lead, and then you've got a horse like Warrior Hero that certainly will like to go forward, I would imagine. Cur Royale out wide is the horse that I'm really interested in and what it's going to do from the start. So any sort of tactics you hear or see about this horse, Cur Royale, I think it's a very interesting runner. I sort of had to cut it into horses I think will run well on horses that are either vulnerable due to their position in the map or where they are in life at the moment, and I thought Snit's on Fire has to run well because it just draws too perfectly not to run well. If it doesn't get too much pressure, it should kick on nicely. Just a matter of how that fence is at this start of the day, this part of the day. Starman looks like it'll pop in behind and a little bit flat last start. Interesting to see it come back in distance. I sort of probably expected it to go up in trip, but I think it'll run well just because of the gate. Socialist will run well. I don't know why it's had 29 days off since the run first up, where it overcame a slow tempo around this track and ran really well. Can only see it running well here. And Cur Royale I love the way this horse has hit the line. Its last few starts, it is 4th up first prep, so it's getting towards the end of its prep, I would imagine. But this stable is very good at keeping them going and putting them away as soon as they show any signs that they need to be put away. So Cur Royale, I think, runs really well. Any luck from that wide gate, I think it's the horse to beat. Just not sure where it's going to get to. But I think say it's sat outside, sits on fire, and they control the tempo. I want to be on Cur Royale. Starman and Socialist are the stalkers. And Constructoral's an inside gate, which I think is a nightmare for that horse, and the horse that I'm otherwise looking to bet around is I Am Lethal. Synthetic will fill 29 days between runs, a few spooky things there, plus a wide draw and a rider change, enough for me to want to find something to beat I Am Lethal. And Construct, I think, will need all the luck in the world from that inside draw. Lucky last. Impossible race, I thought. Open race to finish the program. Rubamos going very well, very adaptable horse, sat outside the leader there at Warwick Farm and showed that it's just got that nice little sprint and can maintain it, and that's why it's dangerous again here. Queen Bellissimo, Tanker and Head Legislator all draw really nice gates, pretty strong horses. Not sure how they'll all be ridden. That's the interesting part, which makes it even more difficult, but they all draw perfectly to get the right runs that they need to do their best. And I thought that horses like Badouche, first up from a spell, whose second trial was quite nice, and even Bowery Breeze, if they go mad up front or something crazy happens or it's down the outside fence, it could come into the race at 50-1 in the last. I thought they were the knockouts. Exotic Ruby as well is set up really well. Just gate 1, it looks like it's a bit of a nightmare for Exotic Ruby here, but can run well. Petronius looks the mad leader. Where does it get to? Do they keep putting the foot down or not? I'm not really sure. A race that I don't really want to spend too much time on either, because I don't have the answer, and I think the horses with the best setups to run well, as I said, were Ruben Moss, Queen Bellissimo, Tanker and Head Legislator. The market's found them all. The two horses that are the blowouts that I'll be throwing in quaddies at big odds are let's see what price is that. Sorry, $26, and Barry Breeze coming in. I thought it was 50. Oh no, it is 51. 51 and 41. They're the two I'd be putting in quaddies at big odds for the blowout in the last. Interesting day. I hate the track, but going in with positive thoughts. I think there's a couple of races that look pretty straightforward. That's always scary. And there are some very difficult races, and there's some good racing overall. Just not easy to find the winners. But I think there's a good mix. The smaller fields look far easier to decipher than the big fields, which is not always the case. Usually good pressure means that you can target strong horses, but these races are quite difficult for a number of reasons, and hopefully I've outlined them. Hopefully that helps. Everyone have a happy, fun, safe New Year tomorrow night, New Year's Eve, and we'll get stuck into it on Saturday. Thanks, guys.